Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Coming at you, we're recording this on Monday, May 13th, 7 p.m. So about 25 hours until the Knicks will tip off a fairly important basketball game that we're going to talk about right now. I'm sure we'll also talk about some of the games that have transpired of late. And I am talking with someone who I don't... Have I talked to you since the series started? On like a podcast.
I don't know if you have.
Damn.
I don't know.
Well, because the series started, It went Monday. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it went Monday, Wednesday. We didn't talk on Tuesday. Andrew correct. No, we haven't. Okay, Andrew's correcting, or Andrew is verifying. Well, Jeremy Cohen, hello, sir. How are you?
Been better, but all right overall. Basketball side. John, the Rangers are playing tonight, actually, with an opportunity to gentlemen sweep the Carolina Hurricanes. So I've got that going for me. And I do have the Knicks in the playoffs, but the last two games, feeling pretty low. Not going to lie to you.
You know, it's funny because before the series, I picked Knicks in 6. That was my official prediction. And then the Knicks won the first two games. So I was thinking to myself, man, is it like pivotal to get one of the next two in Indiana? Is it really bad if they don't get one? What if they go into game 5 on a 2-game losing streak? And I was thinking to myself, well, what do I think is more likely? If I'm going to trust my original prediction of Knicks in 6, that they would take one of two in Indiana, then lose a second consecutive game 5 at home, and then win the series on the road in Indy, or that they would lose 2 straight on the road, and then go back to game 5 and win at home. I mean, I know we're all feeling it right now, but I guess maybe that I've had 20, how many hours? No, yeah, I guess about 24 hours because the game lasted until 6, although really the game lasted until about 4:15. Technically it lasted until 6. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just I'm feeling more optimistic than I should, but I'm not as down as I thought I would be today, if that makes any sense.
I was very down after game 4, candidly.
Okay.
I don't know why. I just was. It hit me hard. I was frustrated with how listless the team was. And I think the annoyance that I had, you call it anger even, I suppose, it wasn't with players specifically, right? It wasn't with any entity. It was kind of the situation itself.
Yeah.
Because yes, they came out flat, but also look at what they've done this entire postseason stretch, missing about half of their rotation dating back to January. And I applaud them and appreciate them. So it had nothing to do with the players or their effort. It just was the situation, the circumstances that the Knicks were in. It was frustrating to watch this team that I fully believe, when healthy, would be close to done with the series. But they're not fully healthy, and they're not close to being done with the series. And to Indiana's credit, they are fully in this, and it's not a series until the road team wins. And I left game 3 frustrated because it felt in that moment like an opportunity to steal the series that just fell by the wayside. And it was more frustrating in that moment as well, because at that point, the Knicks were 6-3 in the playoffs. As Sean with the W said, 2 of those losses stemmed from massive 3-point shots that you just kind of throw your hands up and go, well, again, with that Sixers game, we know they should have fouled, but even still, it's just like, what are the odds? It just seems to be consistently, what are the odds this happens, right? It's the playoffs. Everyone deals with injuries. I mean, the Cavaliers won't have Donovan Mitchell in game 4. So it's all across the league, but there's something about witnessing all these players. And I was at game 2. It was electric, but beforehand, you're wondering, all right, Jalen hasn't come back. Where is he? And then you read the tweets and you're worried about it. And it's a double-digit deficit. And I believe it was 73-63 at one point. And of course, Jalen has his own Willis Reed moment, which was very cool to see from your seat. But now it didn't really mean much if they don't win. And they came back and they won. And it felt like, all right, well, that was a game that they needed to win, that they took back. All right. And then to have the game 3 moment of you're right there, you're in it. Nembhard hits the 3. Okay. Game 4, a lot of energy. And then there's none whatsoever. And it was demoralizing in the sense that I, like a madman who's obsessed with this team, I didn't even turn the game off. I didn't turn game 4 off. I sat at my parents' apartment just watching this, telling everyone else watching the game, there's nothing happening here. Don't expect a comeback. I'm like, oh, what if we can cut the deficit? I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, Mom, it's your game, but what on earth are you talking about? My mom was doing the same thing. 35-point game. Like, oh, well, what if they cut it to less than 30? I think Jalen Brunson should play. I love you. You think Jalen Brunson should play in the 4th quarter with a bum foot? No, absolutely not. And, like, it's fine. But that's the sort of frustration that was every little thing seemed to break Indiana's way. Every single time, without fail, they miss a shot. Oh, thank God! How'd they get the offensive rebound? Yeah. It wouldn't stop, and I could have easily turned the TV off and made it stop. And I'm very grateful of my amazing mom to celebrate Mother's Day prior to that. And I'm sorry, Mom, that you had to be subjected to that game, but them's the breaks. It's just the way it is.
I watched
game 5.
I watched the first half with my mom. So we went out to dinner locally, and then we came back. We had a little belated cake for my birthday. Opened some Mother's Day presents, some birthday presents, and then we all sat down to watch the game. And I think, like, I don't remember when's the last time I've watched a Knick game with my mom, even though over the last few years, because she's obviously been listening to the podcast and now she's an avid newsletter reader. She has become a Knicks fan, like a genuine, like full blue and orange blooded Knicks fan. And we watched the first half together, and it was just kind of like I was hearing her react and watching her react, and she was just bewildered because she had never, since she has been following the team, that she never saw anything like that. Because, like, if you look, I went and looked after the game. Like, their worst loss of the year was, I think, 24 points. It was under 30 for sure. But this was the worst. This was the worst loss of the season. But, like, there had not been a game this season. Andrew, I know your memory is better than certainly mine, and maybe even Jeremy's. But, like, where they were fully out of a game by the 4th quarter, let alone by, like, the first few minutes of the 3rd. Right.
You want to know the only other game that came to mind yesterday?
Where?
It was the Pacer game, the day of the trade. It's the only other game they were really out of it.
It's a good call.
And they want to talk about circumstances. Half their roster got traded in the morning.
But wasn't that? Oh, I don't mean to keep you popping back up here. Wasn't that like there were? If I recall correctly, there were moments in the 3rd quarter of that game where at least you could talk yourself into, like, okay, we know it's not going to happen because of who's not here. But
I don't. Fake comeback, sure. I remember that was the Halliburton 2020 game. He had like a streak of consecutive 20 assist games, and that was the second one. I remember Obi and Julius getting into it, but to Jeremy's point, the trade
deadline.
It was the day that Anunoby got traded for RJ and Quickly.
December 30th.
Oh, you're talking about that game. I thought you were talking about the day of the deadline, February 10th, where they lost by 15.
Even in the 4th quarter of the trade deadline game, I remember doing playback that night with XJ, DJ, and Benji, and it was like they're down 7 here in the 4th quarter. So that's not even the game I'm referring to. I'm saying the day of the OG.
Okay,
the OG for Quickly and RJ trade against the Pacers was the only time I thought, oh, they really don't have a shot tonight.
So hold on, I have it up here. Just I know we're going wildly off track. That was a tie game, a minute and a half into the 3rd quarter, and it was a 13-point game in the beginning of the 4th. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm going like through like the line score. That was a 12-point game as late as was a 10-point game with just under 3 minutes left. So no, that is not
in real time.
I want Jeremy. I guess we just misremember it then. I the whole night I was like, oh, there's a basketball game tonight. Okay, that's right.
Look, technically it was here. I'm looking at it right now. There was a basket by Josh Hart made a 2-point layup with 2:47 to go to cut the lead to 10. It was a little mini 4-0 run, and then the Pacers scored 4 straight, and that was that. But I'm 10 points. Look, we're way off.
So then, nothing like yesterday, John. You're right.
Nothing. So I don't think she had ever seen anything like this. It was a really strange thing. Getting back to what you said before, for those games like yesterday are not hard for me. I mean, they're annoying and they're like kind of hard in the moment as it's unfolding, but then you get to a certain point, you're just like, you're dead to it. What yesterday made me more upset about game 3. That's, I think, what the thing was for me. And like, I just went back and looked at it because I'm like, I don't know if I ever looked at like how bad was their offensive futility. They scored 8 points. So Miles McBride hit a 3 to put them up 9, 98-89 with 9:49 or 9:46 remaining. And so in that final 9:46 after that basket, the Pacers scored 22 points and the Knicks had a 9-point lead and the Pacers scored 22 points. If you had told me at that exact moment that the Pacers were going to score only 22 more points the rest of the game, and with the Knicks sitting with a 9-point lead, I'd be like, oh, great. We're winning the game. We're going to be able to figure out a way to score 14, 15 points over the next like nearly 10 minutes. Scored 8 points over the rest of that game. And like that's in terms of like similar to how I felt after game 5 of the Philly series when we were like, I remember we recorded that podcast when we were both like apoplectic. But for some reason, after game 3, I'm like, it's okay. We're still a better team. We almost pulled this one out tonight. Like, they'll come back with a big effort in game 4, and then they didn't come out with a big effort in game 4.
Yeah, and it's the other challenge here is the Knicks got the benefit of calls overall in games 1 and 2, right?
They did.
But it's also not like the Knicks were the ones calling the games.
No.
Like they were the benefit, but they weren't the ones officiating it. And it makes me even more mad to see the missed call on Siakam on Hartenstein in game 3 at the very end that led to the Nembhard bucket. And it's like, look, I get it. There are calls that will go your way and there are calls that will not. It evens out for the most part in the end. Yeah. But it's also hard to like in the moment and even remove from it to not feel like some of these are makeup calls. And granted, I'm sure on the other side of that, there's the mindset of, well, the Knicks are getting the big market calls, so everyone's got a gripe. It's the playoffs. I don't even want to focus on the officiating because for every gripe that we have, I'm sure Pacers fans would feel they also have a gripe. And that's not what it comes down to. I mean, the Knicks scored 15 points in the fourth quarter of game 3. It's what happened with Siakam is not the reason why the Knicks lost that game.
Precisely.
But
missed 3 free throws in those final 9 minutes and 45 seconds.
Right. I mean, it's the challenge for the Knicks right now is their best player is clearly hurting. Everyone's hurting, but Brunson especially looks hobbled and they're missing so much of their team. And I just so wish that they were healthy. And I know that's such an obvious statement that any Knicks fan could say, right? It's so clear, but I just wish we could see that. I would love to see what this team looks like in its final form. I look at Denver and Jamal Murray's hurt, but they're charging back.
Look pretty good.
Shocked if they won the series. Minnesota, largely healthy. Yeah. Obviously, Boston is missing a key piece in Porzingis, and the Cavs have missed Allen, and now they're missing Mitchell. So it's across the board. I totally get it, but the amount of games missed. But that also goes to the point of the Knicks happen to have players, specifically 2 of the 4, who just don't have a track record of staying healthy in OG Anunoby and Mitchell Robinson. Yeah. And, I think it's really the Anunoby injury that frustrates me the absolute most because every time, and granted, it's only been 2, but every time Anunoby is on the court against the Pacers, the Knicks have won. And every time he's been off the court, the Knicks have lost the Pacers. So to chalk it just up
with
to
one
him,
exception, right. The regular Brunson game in the regular season.
Exactly. Well, but that's the thing. You so wish that he were there, but he's not. And that's a testament. It's not a testament, but that is simply what you have to deal with moving forward, which is he is one of the best at what he does, but he's not always going to be there to do what he does. And it's really frustrating that he's not out there. And I don't subscribe to, blaming Tibbs for this. I think there are faults, of course, with Tibbs, and I would have put Deuce in the starting lineup, but that's Monday morning quarterbacking it. The point is with the gripes. I mean, when something goes wrong, we always look for a culprit. We always look for what's the root cause of it. And it's very easy to blame the coach. And in this case, I just don't think it's really warranted. I think there are other ways you could look at this for what's going wrong, but I also give him credit. He was forced to play Alec Burks, but Alec Burks had nothing in the tank. And a couple of years ago, if this had been the case, Tibbs would have stuck to his guns, would have kept Burks out there. But he wasn't healthy. And now I wonder how much of the shoulder injury also is impacting Alec Burks' play, in that he's had plenty of time to rest, time to get better. Is this someone that with a healthier version, perhaps we're seeing, can the real Alec Burks please stand up? Maybe that's closer to who he is. But also he came here and it didn't seem like the injury was a factor and still was playing poorly. So it's so much that's out of our control that's what's frustrating me the most about. It's all out of our control, but the injuries especially.
I'm frustrated by the how of Game 3. So mention the three, and to be clear, was the Hartenstein non-call utterly ridiculous? It was when you saw the replay and you literally see the referee. Like, can these two guys get out of my way so I could see if there's a play at the basket? He literally looks around Hartenstein being pulled onto the sideline from Siakam. Like, the comedy of that is, I mean, it's you can't beat it. But like, Pacers, to your point, Pacers fans are sitting here and be like, wait, hold on. If the refs hadn't blown a phantom whistle. Not blown a phantom whistle, blown, the kickball that wasn't a kickball. Like, the Pacers would be on the verge of winning the series now in 5 games. I mean, never know what's going to happen after something happens. But like, you could make if I was a Pacers fan, I'd make the argument. I'd be like, hey man, we'd be up 3-1 if it wasn't for the refs helping the Knicks in Game 1 and the Hartenstein non-call, while detrimental, was not like the Knicks definitively lost that game because of that call. It was a hurtful call, and there were other hurtful calls in the fourth quarter. Most predominantly, in my opinion, at least, the Josh Hart goaltending that seemed like a fairly obvious goaltend in the moment. And there were a couple other ones in addition to that, to say nothing of how Brunson is being officiated in the series, but that's whatever. So there's that. Yeah. Can we get more into that?
Well, I just want to say, I thought that the first play of Game 4 was a harbinger of what came after that.
Was that the first play?
Give or take, right?
Where
the first
Brunson
incident
landed, yeah.
With Neesmith, where he looks, I mean, it's the eyes shade down to look and see placement. And it
was bullshit.
It was,
and they called it in the moment, to their credit on the broadcast. They said it like, how do you miss that? You can't miss that. That's the reason. And it was more JJ than anybody else. Why? Because JJ's a shooter.
Agreed. 100%. But that was the very first game of the season with Tatum. Yeah. Same thing. And we saw it later in the season. It just to the point where even JJ was saying, I don't know what's a foul, really. And he's right. I don't either.
Nobody does.
I don't understand how, if you are, I believe it was Ed Malloy in that case, standing right there, why your eyes would glaze anywhere other than that general area. You are totally out of position to see any other contact based on where you are seated, like where you're standing. How you miss that is, quite frankly, beyond me. And I don't know. Again, maybe that was foreshadowing of things to come, where it just wasn't their night. It wasn't their day. It wasn't their game.
And like, look, what I'm about to say, this is not 1 + 1 = 2, but I do like, there is a part of me that when I hear any complaining about the Knicks getting calls and how what is now happening in terms of the refereeing the last 2 games is like some sort of a makeup for all that, I do kind of want to butt my head in there and be like, well, hold on, Julius Randle's name, and I said this on the post game, and I'm sorry to repeat myself. Julius Randle's name isn't even getting mentioned when we're talking about this team now. Whereas there are 8 teams left in the playoffs. I understand, like, some teams have had injuries here and there. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell's not playing tonight. That game is going on as we speak. Who knows? Maybe the Cavs will win the game. We have no idea. Like, as you mentioned, Porzingis is out. Like, Karl-Anthony Towns is out for a long period of time. How much the Wolves actually were affected negatively by that, I think, is up for debate. But, like, none of these teams have had to deal with the loss of someone who is not only an all-star level player, but, like, you would have thought that he was absolutely vital to what the Knicks did on both ends because of, again, if without him to create shots, you're relying on this 6'0" point guard who still managed to do it. But again, that's besides the point. So, like, I'm frustrated by that. And I'm frustrated by, obviously, the fact that they are all these other injuries. And yet we watched the end of that game 3 and they had good looks. They had open looks from downtown. Like, I didn't even realize it at the time I was doing the post game, but like a bunch of people were calling, why wasn't Brunson passing more? Brunson passed to open 3-point shooters, or he passed them open 4 times. Alec Burks twice, DiVincenzo once, McBride once. They missed all 4 of those shots, and the only 2 shots Brunson took in that time, 4 shots he took in that time. 2 of them were great looks. One, Siakam absolutely fouled him from behind and it wasn't called. And then there was one that you could probably say was not like the best shot to be taken. And yet it was the one that he makes a lot of the time. Look, everybody's keep putting up a good face or putting on a good face, and everybody's, for the most part, I think, speaking positively. If you're a Knicks fan, at least, you support the Knicks, and that's justifiable. They've earned that. But it's okay to be a little down, I think, after those 2 games. This is more than I think, like, normal teams that go up 2-0 and then lose both games on the road. I feel like this is a little bit extra in terms of how we're feeling right now in comparison to some of those situations. But maybe that's just because I'm sitting here experiencing it. So I don't know.
No, I feel the same way. It'd be easier to stomach as well if they were, if the cavalry were behind you.
Yeah,
but they're not, and that's just the way it is. And to the Knicks' credit, they've just hunkered down and said, this is the team we're rolling with. That's been their MO for pretty much the entire season, which is great. But it's unfortunate, to your point, that Julius's reputation is at this point like, oh, well, it's an afterthought, because like we can move on as a unit, and we do, but I don't know. I just saw a Pacers post on Twitter about missing Mathurin.
Yeah,
it's great. Yeah, I'm sure his impact is missed. There are 4 players the Knicks have who are in the rotation that are gone. If you're saying that Mathurin is the equivalent of an All-NBA, 2-time All-NBA player, or someone who's all defense caliber, or another player who was on that path, or another who's an even better shooter, like,
I was about to say,
make that argument. But
Mathurin, he might be on par with Bogey. For me, maybe, but there's a difference. Bogey's been there in the playoffs, and we saw it in this playoff run where Bogey came up with like big shot after big shot. Like, Mathurin's been there before. He's a second-year player. Like, maybe, and he's, takes some bad shots and makes some bad turnovers, like, whatever. We don't have to go down that road. All right, we're going to take a quick minute to say hi to our friends at Foreplay. What's up, Knicks fans? The other day, I was talking to 2 girls, and they were telling me how into foreplay they are and how they wished they had more single guys to do it with. No, not that foreplay. We're not talking about getting teed up on the pod. I'm talking FOURPLAY, Foreplay. It's an app where single friends team up and double date other single friends. It's more fun, lower pressure, and a safer way to meet new people, which is exactly why single girls love it. They do. In fact, they love it so much that they make up the majority of teams on the app, as in a 3-to-1 ratio in your favor. Look, we all know everything is better with a friend. Just ask Josh and Jalen. even if Brunson won't admit it. And with foreplay, you don't have to sacrifice bromance for romance, because it's a chance to enjoy a night out with a buddy while meeting two new people in a more social environment without any expectations. The icing on the cake, it is totally free. All right, it's game time. So head over to the App Store now and download Fourplay. That's FOURPLAY, and get ready for a little 2-on-2 pickup. Let's turn our attention to Game 5. So actually, before we do that, we should probably give shout out to our friends at Unified Healing. A couple quick medical updates. Most prominently, or most directly, I should say, OG Anunoby officially ruled out. Tyrese Halliburton, questionable with they uphold laundry list of bullshit that
he's playing.
He's playing. And but just one other thing real quick, we should mention Mitchell Robinson, it was announced, had successful surgery today on the ankle that knocked him from the playoffs. So he'll be reevaluated in 6 to 8 weeks. I don't really know what there was to say about that. But yeah, Anunoby not coming back for this game. Sure seems like it would be a long shot for him to come back for Game 6. Game 7 situation, look, you never know. So this is what we got. This core here. I kind of want to ask you, like, because I went through it today and rewatched Game 4 and thought about some of the changes that need to be made, or not adjustments, but like just what they need to do better. Is there any like one thing that is sticking out in your mind? Like, I hope to see this, or I guess conversely, I hope I don't see this, whether it's an adjustment, whether it's a rotation change, starting lineup change, just like something that they come out and do, or Pacers come out and, or they let the Pacers do anything that is you want to start us off with.
Yeah. I mean, the low hanging fruit is Precious Achiuwa.
Okay.
Talented player. Don't need him to start, in my opinion. I get the size factor entirely. I would rather not shrink the floor to such degree. It felt inevitable that DiVincenzo was going to cool off, considering just how hot he was in Game 3. But also shrinking the floor even more by having two bigs who aren't spacers, and then another in Hart who has obviously been quite good, but there's something to be said about what his general track record is in terms of closing out. And then you have Brunson, who keeps taking pull-up opportunities and is, he's ailing right now, his foot. So it just feels like everything shrinks a bit. And the issue, though, is, okay, well, who's going to go in his place? Juice McBride hasn't had the best series. Alec Burks, I really wouldn't want to see him starting. I would rather him come off the bench. So fewer options now. Of course, you're on your last legs of players here. So I'd go with Deuce, and I'd hope for certainly the best. But I understand the logic behind Precious. It's just, the Knicks still didn't win the offensive rebounding percentage battle. The Pacers through the first 3 quarters. And the reason we can say the first 3 quarters is because clean the glass weeds out garbage time. Mm-hmm. The entire fourth quarter was considered garbage time.
Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be?
Exactly. I'm just stating it for those who weren't able to view it. So you're losing that battle, right? Or at least the Pacers are certainly winning it. And I get the emphasis, but and I don't think that making threes would have been the difference, of course, between Pacers winning this game or not. If the Knicks hit more threes, the Pacers still probably win this game comfortably just because they were so good at shooting. But a lot of it feels like effort, and it's not to say the Knicks don't try. The question, of course, is how exhausted are they? Yeah. We've been playing back games every other day practically. So it would be Deuce. Again, I know that's low-hanging fruit, but you can't make guys get healthier, and you can't transfer the injured players' talents to the players who saw time in the fourth quarter and hope that they get better. It's just not likely. The Pacers are a good team, but they're a healthy team. And that is just what's so frustrating about this.
So
I'm glad they got to rest in the fourth quarter at least.
Yeah, I mean that's talk about low hanging fruit. A note on DiVincenzo, and I don't think I mentioned it on either the game 3 post game or the game 4 post game, but it deserves to be mentioned that he did appear to hurt himself at the end of third quarter of game 3. Has not been the same guy since. Brian Windhorst on the Who Collective talked about that on their pod today, and it's worth mentioning. We have no idea how much that injury is or is not affecting him. Hopefully, comes out looking more like himself in game 5. I think so here's the only frustrating part for me. I agree with you, by the way. It's a change that at the very least warrants strong consideration, if not like actually make the change. This Pacers defense, they are trying hard. They are fighting over screens. But if you get the ball moving, you will get good shots against this team. And also, they don't have the defensive discipline that a lot of other teams have. So like they're not going to guard up on you. Like they would rather like play a little bit off. Like they're going to let you take a pull-up 3. So like you can like just long story short, I think the Knicks got okay shots in game 4, even with Precious Achiuwa on the floor. They found ways to get him involved here and there, not enough. But to the larger point, you need to score against this Pacer team. And right now the Knicks are playing 4-on-5 on offense on most possessions because they're just not guarding Precious Achiuwa. And well, like, I don't know if it's a question of like, was it necessary to sit him? That shouldn't be the question. It's like, would you be better served sitting him? And I'm hesitant to say yes, because I think Deuce, the potential of him as a spark plug off the bench, which you've seen him be at times, including, by the way, in game 3. I thought he was a big reason why that game changed. His defensive energy was a big part of why they were able to start slowing down Indiana. But I think it's more important that they get off to a good start on offense. And I think having Deuce out there gives you a chance to do it. And then for me, though, the real decision comes, or the real like swing factor, I just think they need to put as much speed on the defensive end of the floor as possible. And I know that's like one of those like talking head things where you say it and you're like, okay, great. More speed. What does that actually look like? What difference is that going to make? Well, speed doesn't mean dick if you don't utilize it properly. And the Knicks have not been utilizing much properly on the defensive end of the floor of the series because they're on so many possessions. They're running around like chickens with their heads cut off. So, but I think if you inject more speed and you inject more discipline, which it manifests itself in many forms, I think that's your best chance at slowing them down. Is to just be ready to rotate, be ready to switch, trust that whoever the next domino is in the line is going to get to their assignment in time. So that means you will get to your assignment and the whole thing. Is it going to cause mismatches? Absolutely, it's going to cause mismatches on like maybe a lot of possessions. But at the end of the day, and there was a back and forth going on Twitter between I think Benji and XJ were getting involved and DJ. This notion of like, well, it's going to take the Pacers out of their offense if they're hunting mismatches. And I agree with Benji and DJ that it's less about that and more about you're just going to open yourself up to giving up offensive rebounds to Indiana. To which I say, this is the last thing I'll say on the Deuce thing. If the Knicks have the one at the top of their whiteboard for this game, it has to be a rebound. And it's rebound the defensive glass, and perhaps more importantly, try to rebound on the offensive glass, because I think they have been taking. I know they had a bunch of offensive rebounds yesterday, only because they missed a billion shots, and at some point the Pacers just kind of started letting up. But like, they have not offensive rebounded in this series like they have done all year, and credit to Indiana for that. But I think the Knicks' best chance to win this game, again on both ends, they have to have one of their best rebounding games that they've had all year, which is a tall ask because they've had some dynamite rebounding games this year. And I think if you inject Deuce into the starting 5, everybody else has to make it a point to like, if you see a ball go up in the air, like you dart to it. And that obviously takes a lot of energy to do, but I don't know what choice they have. So
my only concern there is the Pacers have been picking up the Knicks for 94 feet. They've been making them work extremely hard on offense to the point where then they get maybe a little bit more fatigued on the defensive side. And then the rotation players that would come in for them aren't really there because Tibbs has to lean in on the players who are healthy because the players he's playing are the ones who are good.
Yeah.
So like I in theory, I completely agree with that, but I just don't know how practical it is when there were 6 games and now we're entering another grueling game 5. It's just, I don't know. That's the problem. And I think, something that's been consistent throughout this season, and New York Basketball tweeted about this, is that the Knicks are finishing terribly at the rim and in the paint this series, but they've also been a bad finishing team all year
at the rim. Yeah.
At the rim. And it's a huge challenge when you can't get the easy looks and they're not being generated. They're doing great from 3, which is maybe not something we would have necessarily thought, even with adding DiVincenzo, who was one of the best 3-point shooting players of the season. But yeah, it seems silly to just say, well, they're on their last legs because they're guys who are injured, and it's kind of that. But so much of the effort does revolve around fatigue, and Josh Hart played how many 48-minute games to the point where now he has to, like, he's an energy guy. What happens when these
playoffs? Yeah.
Right. What happens when the energy guy runs out of energy? Yeah. And you might think, well, the Energizer battery never runs out of battery, but those batteries do run out. They have to be replaced. And if you don't have the assistance there, it makes everything so much tougher.
To be clear, everything we're talking about, like literally everything we're talking about, every suggestion that we're making, every positing of this possibility or that possibility or adjust this or do that better, all of this falls under the larger umbrella of wildly unreasonable ask. And if the Knicks came out tomorrow in game 5 and they basically, I'll put it differently. If they went out of this series in the way that they went out of the Hawks series, I'm not saying in the manner in which they went out, that was some just brutally ugly basketball. But like the last 3 games of that series weren't really competitive. Like if they just kind of petered out, like, okay, they're human. That's the answer. It's not they couldn't do this or they didn't do that or they, choked or any of these sorts of things. It's they are apparently human beings after masquerading as superheroes for the better part of several months. That's all it is. So to your point about Josh Hart, it's like, yeah, what we're asking of him is wildly unfair. And yet here we are. We're asking it because we've been given the gift of this team for so long now. Just the last thing, I guess, on the starting lineup possibility change. The only other drawback to that is, like, at least now the way the starting lineup is, you get the benefit of 2 genuine perimeter players coming off the bench and maybe injecting a little bit of life, injecting a little bit of offense, injecting some kind of spark. I'm not sure that bringing Precious Achiuwa into a game at the 4 is going to do that. Now they will probably still need to bring him into the game at the 4 if they do make a starting lineup change. And I guess the hope at that point has to be that you have gotten your offensive players going to the point that even with the Pacers having the benefit of an additional player they don't really have to guard injected into the game, like the ball's already rolling down the hill by that point. I think that has to be the hope. I wonder if that's part of the calculation. But I also honestly don't know that I want Jericho Sims on the court again this series. That's the other one because you don't. Okay.
No, that when I envisioned Achiuwa coming off the bench, it wasn't to play the 4. It was to see the minutes that Hartenstein can't play. The angriest I was in game 4 was the 8-second violation.
The 8-second.
I, as it was happening, saying pass the ball. They get called for the 8-second violation. And again, on Mother's Day with my mom sitting in the chair, not even 4 feet from me, I screamed, fuck, at the top of my lungs and actually threw my phone. It's fine, but I threw my phone. That's how mad I was. That was the most I was mad in general. So It just but it was those little things where it's like you because there were moments in this series and especially the Sixers ones where I was getting heart palpitations because the Knicks were so slow at bringing up the ball. I'm like, get it across the line. Yeah, come on, you got to do it. And then the times they do get caught, and it's, of course, not someone who should have the ball in their hands. It's just so infuriating.
So let's go back to that for a second. So let's say Achua essentially takes Hartenstein's place in the rotation. Maybe he plays a few minutes at the 4 alongside Hartenstein here and there, depending on like situation, whatever. So then do you roll with 7 guys, or are we now talking about giving, I guess it would be Shake Milton minutes in this series? Really his first minutes as a Knick. Like, is that, I mean, let's say this. If you put him out there during, let's say you're giving Brunson a rest at the beginning of the second quarter tomorrow. If you put Shake out there, you see how it goes, right? For like 2 offensive possessions, 3 you don't do it. You go 7.
No. You go 7 and you say, hey guys, it's Tuesday. You know when the next game is?
Again till Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
We run you out. Josh Hart, you sat for 24 minutes, I believe. You get to play all 48. Jalen Brunson, how's that foot hurting? It's hurting? I'm sure it is. You say you're fine? Great. You're going to see time. Dante DiVincenzo. Sorry, buddy. Get ready to play as much as you need to. And it's going to be a law of diminishing returns, I'm sure. But what is the alternative? It's Shake Milton minutes, right? That's the alternative. With all due respect to Shake Milton, I am not seeing that as the solution here.
Okay,
I trust the guys who got you to where you are, as tired as they may be, and as much of a rest as they will need. That's what Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday day are for. Yep. That's just what the mentality has to be right now. And it sucks that the Knicks are in this position, and it's a killer that OG Anunoby went down with his hamstring injury. But this is where we're at. And the way I see it, because it's going to be really hard to beat the Pacers in Indiana. They're undefeated there. Win game 5. Try to win game 6, obviously. But if you lose it, get to game 7 and just have OG Anunoby play. That's essentially where my mind is at. It's not, hey, game 6 is done, don't even try, right? But it's protect home court, do the best you can in game 6, knowing the circumstances, and then hopefully OG Anunoby is able to suit up, even if it's a Willis Reed type thing where he's not even playing significant minutes in that game 7. Just sometime.
Just come out of the tunnel.
Out there. Right, exactly.
The only other thing I wanted to mention, and I thought about it as I was writing my newsletter before, is clearly the Pacers have gotten more physical with the Knicks as the series has gone on. It doesn't feel like the Knicks have returned that favor. And I don't know, is that just my perception? I don't know. Is it because they're like, look, we're not going to try to play dirty. That's not what we do. Is it because they're tired and they don't really have it in them to, play rough when this team is just like they're in constant motion? I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I like the Pacers are trying to get down in the muck. I just wonder in game 5, should the Knicks try to join them down there? I don't know.
Thinking about how much energy is being exhausted in being physical. And that's my concern for them. Yeah. What you're saying is absolutely correct, John. I agree with you. I just don't know the energy exerted, what that then does to you on the other side of the court. Or if you don't get the stops, or you get physical and suddenly the foul calls, which I got to tell you, I wish that the S&P 500 had ROIs in the same way that Rick Carlisle's $35,000 translated into great calls.
That's a great call.
We would all be millionaires if we were able to invest in some sort of entity that we're able to get quite in that way. But that's not where we're at. So I just worry that the Knicks being physical, they will be called for the physicality, and then it will relate to Pacers in the bonus, free throws, more points on the board, and the Knicks being exhausted still.
Maybe.
I don't know.
You might be right.
It's my fear.
look, what do we need to win Game 5? I think how Jalen Brunson looks and the sorts of shots that he's making. Maybe not from the outset. We've seen Jalen Brunson like start a little cool and then get into a rhythm as the game has gone on. So I'm not going to be like Jalen Brunson's first 5 shots are going to dictate how the rest of the game goes. That's silly. But I do think Brunson needs to have a good game. Now, a good game can mean different things. You'd love to see him hit a few threes and at some point, not right out of the gate, but like early-ish, because the threat of that and him feeling confident from 3, I just think changes so much of what he does. So there's the Brunson piece of it. The Knicks in general need to shoot well from 3. I mean, just like any other team in the league, like if they don't shoot well from 3, they generally don't win basketball games. And the rebounding. The rebounding is the other thing that I'm going to look for. I want to see, and sorry, one other thing, and I know the Pacers turned the ball over a lot yesterday. The Knicks, I think, generated maybe a series high in steals. I put very little stock in the final stats from that game, or even like any stats from that game from a Pacers perspective, because they were on such a roll that they were feeling so confident. Like whatever. I do think one thing that is inarguable is that the Knicks' best offense during the series, and certainly their easiest offense, has been when they turn defense into offense, because that comes with it's the double bonus. You could prevent the Pacers from getting a shot attempt, and obviously you get a fairly good look at the rim, although God knows the Knicks haven't always converted those opportunities. So yeah, those are the things that I'm going to be looking at for Game 5, and can the crowd? I'm going to be there. You're going to be there too. We'll both be there.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, we both think we're going to be there.
I believe I'm there.
Yeah. Can the crowd come up big? And what I mean by that is like, look, this is Indiana. It doesn't matter what the Knicks come out and do. They're going to make a run. They're going to put pressure on the Knicks. Like there's going to be a moment where like, oh my God, we could lose this game. And how does the crowd respond? Does the crowd have it in them to try? Because I do think at this point you are asking these guys to go so far above and beyond what we should reasonably expect, that like it is going to take something beyond them to like push them across the finish line. And I genuinely believe the MSG crowd could help do that. So that's what I'm paying attention to.
You know what the best thing about not watching the game on TV would be?
What?
Not having to hear about the war of attrition anymore. I'm going to lose my mind if I have to hear ESPN talk about it one more time, or any of these entities. Just enough. We get it. We've been living it since January. We know.
Yeah. We were born in the darkness. Okay. Exactly. This has been great. We're as ready for Game 5 as we'll ever be. Hopefully the Knicks are ready as well. Why do I have a funny feeling that we're going to be, I don't know, we will be sitting here talking about it. Maybe we will be. It depends on when we record next, but sitting talking about a Game 7. It's just, I don't know. I got a funny feeling. I don't think they're going to lose 4 straight.
It doesn't have to be 4 straight. That's the worst part. It can be 4 out of 5. And I don't say that cynically. I say that
I just mean to get to a Game 7.
That's just how the Pacers have to. Sure. Yes. They would have to lose 3 straight games. Well, no, they don't have to.
No, they would have to. The Knicks would have to lose 4 straight games to not get to it. I'm just saying to get to a Game 7, the Knicks would have to lose 4 straight games. That's all I'm saying. So I think we're in for a Game 7. So maybe this is just an appetizer. We will see. Jeremy, anything else from you before we get out of here?
That is all for me, John. Happy belated. Happy Mother's Day to all mothers. And think of those difficult circumstances as well.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. I mentioned this maybe already. I'll mention it again. If you're coming out to the game, if you're not coming out for the game, if you're looking for a great spot to watch the game, we had said T Squared Social is doing a private event. I will be at Penn 6, which I mentioned a few times, on 31st Street. It's literally across, like, diagonal from the Garden. Great drinks, great food. If you want to grab a bite before the game, anything you want, need, and you know, come look for me, say hi. thanks everybody for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. And actually, on that note, just everybody really thank you for supporting the show. We get these chartable emails every week, and I'll just say that the show is doing very well, and obviously that doesn't happen unless people listen to it. So we appreciate everybody who tunes in. It means a lot to us that we are able to do this and continue to take you through this journey and be a part of your journey. So, thanks everybody. And subscribe, rate, review, all those things. And we'll talk to you soon. Let's go next.